Here's an easy project to get you started with precious metal clay. This is a project that can be done with any of the three types of PMC, PMC 3, PMC Plus, or PMC Standard. If you're using PMC Plus or 3, you'll need about 9 grams. If you're using Standard, you'll need about 18 for this. Let's look at the tools you're going to need for this project. First, we need something called Cool Slip. This will keep the clay from sticking to our textures and our tools. This is something that works a lot better than olive oil or Badger Balm, and it doesn't gunk up the clay in the corners of the textures the way those products do. Then for this project we're going to be using texture tips, but you could use any texture that you like on this. And we'll also be making a dipping dish for the textures, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. We're going to need something to keep the clay from sticking to our hands, and we're going to be using our product called Claymate. This is an all-natural hand conditioner that keeps the clay from sticking to your hands. After we fire the clay, we're going to need to burnish it, and for that we use this little brass buff. We'll need something to mark where we're going to have the holes for our earrings drilled, and for that we're going to use this little divot tool. Then we'll need something to drill the holes. This is a pin vise, and we have a 2mm drill bit installed in it, so you'll need that to drill your hole. We'll need a tissue blade. This is a very, very sharp tissue blade that we use for cutting the clay. And then we'll need an acrylic work surface and snake maker. First thing I need to do is condition my hands with Claymate. I'll take a little dab. I'm going to rub that thoroughly into the palms of my hands, and then I'm going to make sure that I get the very ends of my fingers. All my fingertips need to be coated very, very well. This is where the clay gets most and will stick the most, so you want to make sure that the Claymate's on there to protect your hands from the clay sticking. Now I'm going to show you how to make a dipping dish for texture tips. This is something that you'll only need if you're using the texture tips. If you're using texture tiles or any other type of texture, then all you need to do is spritz your texture with Cool Slip to keep it from sticking to the clay. So to make the dipping dish, I've got a candlestick holder from the thrift store, and I've cut out 2 makeup sponges and placed those in the bottom. Now I just spritz the sponges with Cool Slip, and I can press my texture tips into the sponges and they will not stick to the clay. For this project I'm using texture tips from our blockheads, scatterbrain outline, squared leaves, and all wound up circle embossed texture tip sets. Now all I have to do to make these clay proof is dip them into the dipping dish. So I'm going to prepare these in advance, and then they'll be ready for when I need them. So now I'm going to take my lump of clay and form it into a little bit of a log and roll it out. I'm making a snake with the work surface, and I press down on it, not too hard, but just want to keep it going, rolling it back and forth until I get about a 4-inch long snake. And that looks about right. So now I'm going to take my piece and fold it in half, kind of line it up. I want to get 2 equal pieces out of this. Now I'm going to use the tissue blade to cut this piece in half. And I have 2 natural ends and 2 cut ends, and I'm going to use those to my advantage in this design. So now I'm going to form a teardrop shape, and I want the natural end to be slightly higher than the cut end, and the cut end will butt up against the other portion of the snake and sort of just sit real nice there. And it takes a little bit of a finesse to do this. And I also want to make sure that I've got mirror images, so I want one to go to the left and one to go to the right. So once I get these all lined up, I'll be ready to texture. And I could take and put water on the joints here, but I don't think it's necessary, because when we texture these, you'll see what happens here. I'm just going to take one of my texture tips and press it in the middle. I want to make sure I press down all the clay, not too hard, not too deep. I want to turn this now and get a slightly different impression. Then I take my next tip and press it down on the side and on the opposite side on the other one, so I have mirror images. And I'm going to do the bottom portion of each one. And now the inside part. So now what I'll need to do is make a little mark on each one of the earrings where I want the hole to be drilled. And this is only a pilot hole. I'm actually not going to drill this until it's dried because I will get a much nicer hole if I drill this when it's dried, and it'll be easier than when it becomes solid metal. So here's one of the finished pieces. It's completely dry and ready to be drilled.